pizza before recording the podcast. So that is. And drinking a soda.
S-O-D-A, soda.
That's right. Soda.
You like your soda pop?
Boy or a girl. Seinfeld reference.
I get it.
Yeah.
Vulva.
S-O-D-A. All right.
Super Cambot. Hi, Super Cambot.
Hello. We got 10 viewers. Let's do this thing.
We'll ruin that.
It's only the two of us this week, so we'll ruin that quick.
Just the two of us.
Ding. I know which outro song I'm.
Make it if we try. Yeah, there you go.
What I'm using now. This is great.
Luke Skywalker. I like that.
It's a good episode title. All right. Hello and welcome to episode 576 of the Player One podcast for Tuesday, November 21st, 2017. I'm your host, Chris Johnston. With me, as always, the one, the only guy from Canada, Mr. Greg Seward.
The only one who's with you as always.
That's right. The only one joining me this week.
I feel like you're joining me, but that's cool.
You didn't cut out at the last minute.
Yeah. I didn't have a surprise gymnastics meet to go to.
Yeah.
At the last second.
That's right. Or a significant other on vacation or on a trip.
Clearly not planned. Either of those things
not planned. These things aren't planned.
How could you live at that speed?
I don't know. Maybe it's good because I was going to have to preface this episode with let's not talk about the legalities of loot boxes or whether all that stuff is good or not or whatever. Let's talk about Battlefront 2 in a different way
without talking about loot boxes.
Now I don't even have to really say that because you're not going to bring that stuff up. So we're good.
Well,
probably. So anyway, we recorded a podcast last Sunday, and then Monday rolls around, and the internet exploded.
Yeah,
completely over Star Wars Battlefront 2, and part of it is that the game went live on EA Access on the Xbox a week ago, a week before its release date, right? And then also, if you bought the premium version of the game, you could play it a few days early as well. So there was that. But the EA Access thing is where things really got going. And I think something happened in the Battlefront 2 story every day, like some kind of flare up, like all 5 days.
Yeah, if you weren't paying attention, like even for a few hours, you missed something, basically.
That's right. So obviously people started complaining about the prices and the fact that the progression system seemed very pay to win early in the week. And the first thing that happened was that a developer, quote unquote developer on Twitter, said that they had received harassment or death threats.
Right.
And this story got picked up by a number of press outlets and reported on. Waypoint did an article on developer harassment, which quoted that one as well. And later turned out through the reporting of Jason Schreier that this guy doesn't work at EA.
Well, it can't be confirmed anyway.
Can't be confirmed. His Twitter profile said that he was game dev at EA.
Right. But
it cannot be confirmed that this person works at EA.
Right.
Apparently there were some pictures on his Twitter account that were taken off of Visceral's Twitter account.
Yeah, and I mean,
a whole lot of sketchy stuff.
Jason, in the article that he wrote, was saying that he had managed to get as far as getting the guy's name, like his full name, and he researched that, and he managed to reach out to the guy through the Kotaku Twitter account. But once he started asking questions about, I can't verify that you worked there, the guy went silent, and then his Twitter account was locked down, and a lot of stuff was deleted, and
It no longer says
So
game dev at EA.
I think probably he wasn't a game dev. I think that probably that means that the death threats were not true, but I also feel like it's a really sad commentary on where we are as a hobby and an industry, that hearing about a developer getting death threats was so believable.
Well, I think it is believable because it's happened.
Right. So it's pretty upsetting.
It's harassment and death threats towards game devs, that is a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
because it only takes a couple hours to make high def 4K assets and things,
right.
and all that. Yeah. So yeah, it was so believable that nobody really bothered to check except for Jason Schreier, and I certainly appreciate that the legwork that he did on that story.
Yeah.
So anyway, the internet began frothing, of course, as it is wont to do.
So okay, sorry, yeah. I just said, like, so some of the details here are, I mean, there's so many different moving parts to this.
Yes.
And like one of the major issues that the internet in general had is that in a previous press event.
Oh yeah.
So okay, one of the major issues. So one of the major issues, and there were lots, but one of the major issues that the whole internet was abuzz about was that you have to buy like legacy characters. It's hero characters like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker.
The characters you want to play as in a Star Wars game.
Right, yeah. Like
the
actual Star Wars characters. They're unlockable. You have to buy them with credits. And the way you get credits is basically just through game. Because there's like 2 or 3 different actual types of currency in the game, which is so...
There's 2, credits and crystals.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you have more than one currency in your game and you're not a free-to-play game, what are you doing?
Play game.
So what are you doing? Yeah, exactly. You're a free-to-play game if you have that.
That's one of the other issues. But anyway, people who have been to a press event, like YouTubers and members of the press that have been to a press event previously, saw that
a review event.
So where they reviewed the game, the characters like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. I think Luke Skywalker is the one that was actually called out. Was 10,000 credits.
That's right.
The game gets released early on EA Access, and people see that Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker cost 60,000 credits.
That's right.
And someone did some quick math to figure out, on average, what people are making per day playing multiplayer. And they figured that would take approximately 40 hours to unlock one of those characters.
I think the developers at DICE have disputed that math.
Right.
And it's hard to say, like, exactly if that would be correct or what. I think the more interesting thing here is the change in pricing
was kind of sneaky.
It was sneaky, and it wouldn't have been found if somebody hadn't analyzed some of the video footage taken at that event.
Right.
Super sneaky.
Yeah, like that. I think that's the bigger... They clearly got the balance wrong. Let's get that out of the way. And they're being accused of creating a pay-to-win game, which I really don't think is an unfair assessment.
I don't think so either. I think that is pretty much right on. I watched some videos over the last week of somebody playing as Boba Fett without any of the star cards, any of the buffs that those give you, and he couldn't hit for anything. And then he spent some money, and suddenly he was unstoppable and got like 40 kills.
Right.
For a game, like ridiculous level there.
And I mean, there's a link, and you should put this link in the show notes from GameSpot that breaks down how the progression system works in Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
And it almost gives you a headache. Like
it does. Yeah.
You've got so many different dials and levers that are being pulled every time you play that game. It's a free to play game. It really looks comparable to something you would see for like an FTP game on iOS.
Yeah.
Like a really successful one. Because you have the star cards and you have the different currencies, and then like there are overall experience points, but then there are experience points within the type of character you're playing, which unlocks more places that you can put in star cards, which are consumables. And it's like, it's just, and then you earn credits, and you can only earn 500 credits per play session if you're playing against bots.
That's an arcade. That's the offline mode.
Then you have hours long recharge time for that. So like there's just all these different things. And then there's loot crates, of course, which I know somewhere Ethan just had a shiver go down his spine.
I think a lot of the problem with the entire system, well, A, it's too complicated, and B, they don't do any explaining of it, right? It seems like people have to be playing for a long time to even really determine what they're going to spend their money on, money and time on, really.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like you say, it was sneaky, and it kind of really reminded me of the whole controversy surrounding Forza 7 recently.
Yeah,
where they had that VIP pass that you could pay an extra like $40 or $50 for up front. That was an established product for the last 10 years, and without telling anyone, they changed it to a consumable.
Right.
And then they had to backpedal, much like EA's done here. So
yeah, you had to do multiple backpedals, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
In a second. What I think, the unlock pricing changing from the review event. So, obviously iOS games, mobile games have had to go to reviewers and whatnot. And if you're going to do a free to play game that that relies on purchases, you should definitely be upfront with those costs, because like EA here, you're going to get caught.
Yeah.
And if it means that you have to give reviewers PSN cards and like give them the full experience of how consumer is going to purchase these things. I mean, it's ridiculous that they didn't do that. Like it seems like they wanted to hide it, right? And they had that beta and everybody complained at the beta stage and they said, oh, we're making changes. It doesn't appear that they made enough meaningful changes from that beta period to smooth over the already the tide of really bad comments. So
yeah, and I mean, they're coming out and they're saying too that a lot of the numbers that are in place are based on the data from the open beta as well. And I'm sure it is, but
well, here's the thing about that. You can't let data decide everything, right? And the weird thing is EA is a large company, right? I'm sure that they do mock reviews of everything they put out, right? They have testers who hammer this thing and could easily be, you could take a poll, like, how do you feel about the system here, right? I mean,
here's the problem, though.
They didn't do that?
Well, maybe they did, but I think here's the problem with that. And I think this is part of a larger conversation about, and we've been having this conversation for a long time, because this really started happening when you and I sort of exited the games media. You can ask for opinions, but all those players saw a number on a screen, then they clicked buy because they were testing.
That's true. And it's not their own money.
It's not the same as pulling $5 out of your wallet or looking at your account and seeing, oh shit, I just spent $300 on this thing. Like, it's not the same. Right. It's not the same feeling. You're not using your money, which has always been a problem, I think, in general for reviewers now of games that require microtransactions or free to play games or whatever, because you don't have that same sense of value. And we had the same problem back when we were doing games reviews professionally. We would run into the same problem. It was a little different, but it was basically the same thing, where it's like we would look at these products that we got just as sort of, it's something you were handed to review. You didn't spend $50 to play this game, right? Like, so you kind of lose that value. That whole value proposition isn't really there. You can guess at it and you can try to be reasonable about it, but it's not the same as going to a store. So you would, like, we used to be with the games that we review, we could be really flip about it and say, like, this is shit. If you bought this, you should take it back. When really, for a lot of people, if they only can buy like one game every month or 2 months, or the kids that we would be writing to, like writing these reviews to, who get one game for their birthday, you better be damn sure that they're going to get their money's worth out of that game.
Right.
Because they don't have other options. So yeah. And it's just gotten worse, because what I was saying before is, like, ever since we got into the situation where not only, I think the first thing was when you got into big online multiplayer games, how do you review those properly? because you never know what the server load is going to be. Reviewers in these review events are always in perfect conditions.
Yep.
Right. So you're never going to see the warts. You're never going to have that launch day breakdown of the servers. Like you just
not only that, but
that.
The people that the game company sets you up to play against are all like upstanding individuals. They're not going to be griefing you like the general population might.
No one's found the exploit in the system, and
exactly. Yeah. How
like
do you review those games? There was a recent release that came out that was buggy, that had some crash bugs, and it got slammed by 2 particular outlets. I'm not going to say what the game title is, but I read those and was like, this seems unfair, in part because the nature of digital games now, once you put out a patch, those things can be those technical issues can be gone, right? And then your review is invalidated completely. Like, and if a game is so bad or buggy that it has that you can't play it, why are you giving it a score? And then as a reviews editor, if you're reading that text, like, you should immediately be like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna contact the publisher and we're gonna hold this, right? Instead of, we're gonna put this out and it's a digital game, a small digital game, we may never even go back to it or redact our previous review. It's on Metacritic now, so and that's something that impacts a lot of games. Like Friday the 13th is a 58 or 59 on Metacritic, in part because of its launch week problems, right?
Right, and that's the other thing I was going to say is, like, we live in a time now where the launch game is not anywhere near the final version a lot of the time. Like, you look at something like, I mean, I think actually, aren't they going to release a legacy edition of World of Warcraft or something like that? Yes. But you look at any of those, or like EverQuest, right? Whatever, and you couldn't take a review from the week EverQuest was released and have that apply at all.
Or somebody mentioned that
same game anymore.
Doom 2016 came out on Switch, and IGN had a review that was like a full point higher than their original review. But since that time, they added the arcade mode and did a whole bunch of stuff with the online play. So, yeah, you're right. They did give Doom 2016 this particular grade, but the Switch version has all the stuff that the PC version didn't when it was reviewed a year and a half ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not exactly comparable.
No.
Or a game like Overwatch, they've added like 5 or 6 more heroes to the roster, and they've done a lot of balancing changes in that time. So, yeah, how
I don't know. I wouldn't.
How does one get around it?
I wouldn't want to be a reviewer today because,
I wouldn't either. No.
Somebody in our channel, hacker alias TF by God, TF Cross God. I don't know how you TFX God. Saying it's the publisher's fault. They shouldn't put up broken games. People will buy those broken games day one, so they need to know. Absolutely agree. But talking more about the conundrum of reviewers, and also where those reviews live, because again, your reviews, a lot of games have big day one patches. So where your review lives, your review can actually be invalid like the second it's published, and it just sucks.
It does. I don't know how you get around it. I was talking with Bob Mackey on Twitter about it a little bit, and he mentioned, that review sites now pay reviewers so little that it's not going to be worth going back 6 months, 9 months later and adjusting the score.
Well, I don't think it's also not worth it for that site anyway, because who cares?
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to drive traffic because there's a patch for a game that came out 6 months ago, unless it's like an Overwatch or something, right? Like, which is why the whole Polygon thing is always a bit of a joke, because I love what the idea of that
they were going to do it.
Right, and they did do it on certain games, but they only did it on games that would have an impact to their traffic, which makes sense.
I can't even remember an example, because they did it with SimCity, right? Yeah. They did that terrible thing, but I can't remember any reviews after that where they did that.
I don't remember, but I know they've done it. But yeah, I think it's funny because something else that people are talking about, and this is sort of the way I was looking at this too, because we hear this a lot, and we hear it a lot from Ethan in a way. Although I don't think he's bangs this drum for the same reason that I'm about to say, but everyone's sort of complaining about the idea of additional monetization, games as a service, and don't release things that are broken. But I think really the AAA industry in particular, but the games industry in general, has really backed itself into a corner where a lot of the bigger games are such huge financial risks now that they've got to do something to continue earning revenue off these games before they come out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that what EA did was remotely the right way to do it, and it was also way too sleazy. But I mean,
but
we've gotten to a situation where the public expects these massive games now, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of these games ship broken in the first place, because it's not reasonable, it's not feasible. But the only real way to fix it, outside of the things these companies are trying to continue to earn revenue off of these games and make, like you always talk about, make it so that people want to play these games for hundreds of hours, is to reduce scope. But I think there'd be a huge backlash on that.
More than likely, yes. Although, I mean, people got all up on Splatoon for shipping with what, like 4 or 6 maps, and Overwatch didn't have a ton of content and no single player story mode or anything like that. What was I going to say?
I don't know.
I forgot.
But I can keep going on that, like just as an example. Sorry.
I was going to say, so the conventional wisdom is that EA is the one that determined the microtransaction, like the economy of the game. And it may be true that some people at EA had a say in that, but I have to believe that DICE did too. That DICE crafted this thing, right? Obviously, they want to make money for EA because it also benefits them as a developer, right?
Well, yeah, at the end of the year, and that's kind of gets to what I was. That kind of goes back to what I was getting at. Is at the end of the year, on the bottom line, they want to make sure that their product made money, because that's what EA is going to care about. Sales are great; their product need to make money. And just to sort of test this thought out a little bit, I went back. I couldn't find the credits list for Battlefront 2, but I went back to Battlefront and I looked at how many people at DICE, just at DICE, worked on that game. It was over 100. You got to figure that the development cycle was probably more than 2 years, but let's say 2 years. And since those developers aren't in North America, let's say they have an average salary of about 50,000 USD a year, based on the latest polls that I've read. That for 2 years, you're talking $10 million in development costs. Do I have that right?
Probably more than that.
I'm just talking about the developers. And then you have to take into account the overhead for the IT department and the HR department and the benefits and keeping the lights on and the management, and that's just the DICE. And then you're talking about the 7 or 8 other studios they contracted to work on the game. And then you're talking about all of EA's management and the different regions and the localization and the QA testing. And when you get to it, if you go and look at the amount of people that worked on, like I said, the first Battlefront game, it's over 1,000 names. That's why these games cost so much. Like, that's insane marketing. And it's the Star Wars games, which means there was a Star Wars license fee that was paid up front.
Yeah.
So these are huge risks. And people in chat are saying, like, it's not the players' fault, the budgets are crazy. That's true. What I'm saying is that to make these budgets less crazy, I think there would be a huge backlash from players. You would not get something with the amount of content. And again, I'm not excusing what they did. I'm just saying that a lot of these people have put themselves in these companies have put themselves in a position where they can either disappoint their fan base, or they need to find ways to monetize this stuff past the $60 price.
In part, if you come out with a game that has, a limited amount of content versus a game that's been out on the market for 3+ years and has had constant content updates. You're going to be judged against that, right?
Right.
So you have to come out with a big game.
And I want to keep going back and saying I agree that it's not a workable system, and I don't like that anyone does it. But I understand why it's happening, and it would take acceptance on a massive scale of the gaming populace that this isn't a workable model, and we're going to stop doing it. And that's not going to happen.
What's not a workable model? What do you mean what is not a workable model?
Games the size that they are.
What are you talking about?
AAA games being the size that they are right now. Like somebody just mentioned Hellblade.
But
like Hellblade was a small game on a reasonable budget. Absolutely. But I don't think you would see people accepting games of that length as the bread and butter of the industry.
Well, also, I don't think Hellblade has made its money back.
Well, then there you go.
I read that somewhere that it still has not. But I think the part of the problem is that, I mean, we're in this situation because you look at the NPD numbers, look at what's selling. I mean, Grand Theft Auto 5 is still in the top 10.
Top 10.
Right? Like, people say they don't need these big games, yet the consumer behavior is the opposite.
Right. The numbers don't jive with what people are complaining about.
Yeah.
As much as we all want to agree with that, but
I will say this past week, EA has just continually stepped in it.
Yeah.
Like every time they've tried to do something, they went on Reddit and made a comment, which is a perfectly fair comment, you know, that they're continuing to look at things and blah, 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 PR speak. And it became the #1 downvoted comment in all of Reddit history.
They set a record.
The #2 thing was from a guy who was specifically trying to get as many downvotes as possible. They knocked him down in the #2 spot.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And then they came around and they're like, okay, we're going to reduce the credit pricing for the heroes. It was 60,000. Now it's going to be 10,000. So we're 75% off of that. But at the same time they did that, they also reduced the reward you get when you complete the campaign. The reward was 20,000 credits, and they cut that to 5,000. So while yes, they cut the hero costs, they also cut rewards costs, or the amount you get as a reward. So it kind of like evened out. It kind of zeroed out that goodwill that they were trying to get by cutting the cost.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Like, that's one of the reasons why I hate it when games have all these different monetization systems happening, because it feels like, how would you ever balance that properly? Like, outside of honestly just data, it's just data. But then you're also running into an issue, I think, where like there's sort of everyone's hyper focused on this, so there's no way they were going to win anyway, without coming out and just saying like, you know what, we're just going to turn it all off, which they also did to a point. But the only way you can really balance a system like that out is through data. Like, you can do it on gut feeling all you want, but at the end of the day, you're looking at your numbers and you're seeing what people are responding to and aren't responding to, and you can only adjust based on that. And especially when you've got like 30 different variables that all feed into the overall experience as a balancing issue. Like,
that's right.
What do you do?
Including what comes out of loot boxes, how many credits people earn per game, things like that. It's all sliders, and they all impact each other, right? And if you decrease the cost, then you're also decreasing the amount of grind, which, you know, good or bad, that people will have to do to get those things. So you have a certain amount of content in the game, and you've worked out how long it's going to take people to unlock all of that content, and then you have to cut that by 75%. Then all of a sudden you run into the issue where people could be running through all the content in the game too quickly.
Right.
And you want the situation where, and we've heard about it for months now, like the NPD is talking about games that you play not for dozens of hours, but hundreds of hours, right? And have that replayability. Then if your players run through the entire content treadmill before you're ready to add more, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly
not saying whether that's good or bad, but
they painted themselves into a corner here.
You're roboting, by the way.
Oh, am I?
You are roboting big time.
You're roboting.
So unplug and replug. Am I really?
No, I'm just kidding. Is this any better?
No. No, it's your USB connection is messed up.
Oh, what?
So unplug and replug. It's not your connection speed.
Is that better?
Much better.
Wow.
You're back.
I hope I didn't screw up my recording, though.
You can always stop recording. Go ahead and stop recording.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Let's start again.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Stop. No, stop. Oh. Okay, hang on a sec. Give me a minute here.
And we're just getting into a frothing lather right there. now it's cut off.
I've never had that happen before. I swear this has never happened to me before.
Yep. Okay. That happened last week, didn't it?
No. Not that I know of.
After the show, it happened.
I'm recording again.
It happened after the show.
Okay.
All right. I'll have to do a clap later. All right. What were you talking about?
I think I was looking at some of the chatters in our channel here, and I do agree. Like I say, I'm not trying to excuse it. I'm just sort of trying to look at it from the standpoint of the company, in that they have AAA game industry has become a beast that they have to constantly feed, and a $60 price tag per game doesn't do it. There needs to be some viable alternative to just laying everyone off at the end of each development cycle. At least in the industry we have right now, because right now we're in an industry that's filled mostly with people who are salaried jobs. It's not like the movie industry where a lot of people work on contract for one project and then move on, which I really wouldn't want to have to do. But I agree. The way EA went about this, it feels totally like greed, and it feels dishonest. And all their comments were downvoted. That comment was downvoted because they made it sound like they had done all this for the good of the player, when really what they're doing is trying to push loot boxes. So,
Yeah, I mean that was the way they were going to have additional content for free without a season pass. They were going to make money off the loot boxes, encouraging people to buy. They clearly went overboard in that. And then when they changed the economy a little bit and messed that up also by increasing the grind. And so the DICE developers, a group of them, went and did a Reddit Ask Me Anything, which seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I think it was a bad idea, actually.
Well, there was no winning.
They basically, they got roasted. And they tried to explain themselves, which is difficult. I mean, if you have an angry mob of people who believe that the game that they have been looking forward to for a year plus is ruined by these practices, and you're going to tell them, no, like, we're working on it. We're trying to make it fair for everybody. We're trying to work on the balance. It was a losing situation. They were not going to win anybody over, right?
Yeah.
Then apparently Disney got involved because the story started getting picked up by more and more mainstream outlets.
I mean, it was being covered by like CNBC and CNN. And
Washington Post.
So that's when Disney wakes up and says, "Hey, wait a minute! Like, this is our property. What's going on?
You're dragging our IP." Through the mud with this. And so EA has temporarily removed credit purchases from Battlefront 2. So good, I guess. Of course, they're going to come back at some point. maybe changed. We'll have to see. We'll have to see if they can explain how they changed things when those finally do come back. But then again, like, what about the people who have had the game from EA Access or the Premium Edition for the last week or 3 days and actually did purchase buffs, and now those people are way ahead, and the people who just bought the standard game have no way outside of grinding to catch up.
Yeah.
Which seems like another bad situation.
Again, that's what I was going to say. That's kind of the other problem with a system, with systems like that, is that you also have to, once the game's old enough, you also have to stop and worry about, like, are we screwing over our most sort of valued, most dedicated players by doing something here, right? Like,
right.
You try to bring, we still need to bring in more revenue, but here are these people who've already spent tons of money, and we want to make sure that we don't devalue what they've done. So I'm glad I don't work in that sort of area of the industry, because it would just be a complete mind fuck.
Well, here's the thing though. Like, I play a lot of free-to-play games on mobile. I occasionally spend money on free-to-play games on mobile. And I've bought Overwatch loot boxes. And to me, the thing about those games versus this game is the games that I spend money on and have a good experience with, where I feel like I've gotten value out of spending, are games like Overwatch and other mobile free-to-play games. And this, it doesn't seem, even if you spent money, even if you spent like some of the lower tiers, that you were going to get all that much value out of it, especially if you were the type of person who is interested in unlocking everything.
Yeah, just like from reading how the progression worked and some of the times that were involved, it really, really reminds me of some of the worse free-to-play games on mobile. Like the ones where, like, I get to play for 15 minutes today, and then I can't really do anything of note for another day.
Well, actually, okay, so to talk about that for a second, the arcade mode. How bad is it? I mean, just as a game developer, I'm sure you've run into this, where you're telling the player they can't get a bonus or like can't earn for another 3 hours or whatever. Like, that is just like the worst feeling as a player. Like, suddenly you don't even want to play the game at all. But then you look at a game like Clash Royale, free-to-play game, obviously very successful, that gives you chests of rewards, and you have like a number of slots that you can put chests in, and then you don't get anything else that day, right? Or you have to pay crystals or whatever to unlock those things. It doesn't tell you, oh, you can't earn anymore for another 3 hours, or no more credits for you, kind of thing.
Your army is tired. They need to sleep for 7 hours.
Exactly. And well, now free-to-play games, especially with those boxes that you have a limited number of them that you can have, you don't have to disappoint the player by saying you can't have something. It kind of cuts you off gently. And you kind of figure out as a player, well, okay, it's not worth spending more time in this because I'm not gonna get any more rewards.
Yeah.
That line in the arcade mode, just I was watching a Boogie video on it where it said you don't get any credits for another 3 hours. It's like, what? Who comes up with that messaging?
Right. It almost sounds like
it's so player hostile.
it really is, and it almost sounds like one of their biggest sins here was that they didn't go and hire the people who do this job so well on the mobile side.
But the EA has those people. They do Galaxy of Heroes.
I know.
Maybe they didn't think they had to. I don't know. Maybe those people weren't involved in looking at the economy here. I don't know.
There's like I said, there were tons of problems here, but at the end of the day, like in the chat channel here, people are talking about celeb voice actors, and yeah, they're expensive, but I don't think that, honestly, when you're talking about a crew of over 1,000 people that made this thing, like the 8 celebrity voice actors they hired did not contribute that much, and they weren't big time celebs anyway. And the thing is, with a lot of these games, and especially with something that's licensed like Star Wars, I'm guessing at the very least that they would have to use union actors, whether they're celebrities or not, and that is a significant cost increase no matter what. Or we could go back to the old days in the mid 90s when clearly the the secretary or the office manager was in a closet somewhere with a single microphone. People who aren't actually actors doing all the voiceovers.
People hate you, Steve, if you're too stingy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, sure, there's significant cost, but I don't. Again, when you're talking about a group of people, over 1,000 people who have their name on something, I don't know that they're that significant.
Yeah, I suppose the fact that Battlefront 2 was getting all the bad press, it kind of took the spotlight away from Need for Speed Payback, which has also been getting some bad.
They're probably happy about.
Bad, yeah, bad press for a similar kind of pay-to-win system or a monetization system. So.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Who knows what'll happen when the microtransactions come back?
Because they will.
They're coming back for sure, but we'll see how much they've actually changed. It is so weird to me. You have a big company like EA who does mock reviews and all this stuff, and they didn't.
I guess what I was saying,
they didn't see this coming, or they stepped in it like 4 or 5 times this week.
Again, I think what happens is that mock reviews can't handle this sort of thing.
I think you're right.
These systems don't play nicely with that sort of setup.
Well, and I think also even reviews, like you were saying, when you're not spending your own money, you have a different relationship with that product, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And once it gets to the public, it's easier to be like, oh yeah, you know what? They're right, or this is right.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
like systems are bad.
When I first moved to development and stopped reviewing games for a living, that was one of the biggest shocks. It's like I found that I couldn't necessarily relate to a lot of the reviews I read anymore because, that thing that they're crapping on that I happen to already have bought. It's like, well, I still want to see, I'm going to give this more of a chance because I want to see if I can get my money's worth out of it, at the very least. Because if I trade it in, I'm not going to get my full money back.
I think it goes both ways. You could say reviewer isn't going to harp on the value of microtransactions because they're not spending their own money on it. And then a reviewer could give a game a bad score because they haven't invested any money in it, and they're not willing to see, depending on how much time they spent, they're not invested in learning systems that might seem obtuse.
And I think, that's what I was just going to bring up too. I think that was something else that we used to see, and it was something that I used to suffer from as a reviewer myself. Was that you got something that I'm under a strict deadline to play this. Oh my God, I need to grind for this long, and you sort of crap all over it in your review, and you realize when you get out into the world and you've only got 1 or 2 games to play at a time at your leisure, you wanted it to last a little longer because, again, you wanted your money's worth.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of calls in the last week that reviewers should, talk about the price of the microtransactions, or it should weigh into the score and whatnot. And I kind of look at that like I look at game pricing from back when I was a reviewer. And really, there's only 2 cases where I think you can mention price in a review because it's going to change. It may change, right, over time. It's if the game is exorbitantly expensive for not a whole lot of content. I think you mentioned it then. Or if the game is super cheap and has a ton of replay value, then you mention it there.
Sure.
In between, I don't think it matters as a metric that a consumer can really judge a purchase based off of.
But see, now I think it does more than it used to because a game could potentially cost hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. Yeah. And that should figure in. But I see what you're saying, and you're right. But and like looking at a couple of examples, like back in the day, something like the NFL 2K game that they released at $20. Right? Yeah. You would call that
Katamari.
Or Katamari, or somebody like Blair Farrell in the chat just mentioned Steel Battalion with that ridiculous controller, and that was like a $200 game. Or even back in the day with Neo Geo games, you know, we call out that those games were super expensive, and did you get your money's worth for that? It was definitely part of the review.
No.
But no, I would agree.
Yeah. One thing I would like to see, and it hasn't happened yet, is, you know, you have all these people in the industry that are dedicated to economy design. I want to see some journalist, I don't care who it is really, to interview people who are who, you know, get their hands dirty in this stuff and really like figure out the economy in a game, free to play or otherwise, and find out from them like what the problems are with Battlefront 2. And
that would be an interesting angle to take on an article.
Like, because I think too often from forums and Reddit and Twitter, you really only hear that the whole system is bad. Remove it now. I'm mad. And that's a perfectly acceptable angle to take. But what I'm more interested in is, what about this design can be improved, or like, where did they go wrong? Or like, why is the microtransaction model acceptable in this other game, but not acceptable in this game? And really get quotes from people who do this kind of thing for a living.
Right? That would be cool. I would read that.
That would be awesome. I would totally read it.
Because honestly, to me, it's just all magic.
I know.
I know it's all stat based, but it's just voodoo as far as I'm concerned.
The other thing I would love to see, so we have that website howlongtobeat.com, which I don't know if you've
I love that
used
website.
How Long to Beat.
Oh, I go all the time.
I go all the time to that too. And I love it because it tells you like what the average playtime is, what the completionist playtime is, just the story stuff, side quests or whatever. And it's, to me, I kind of want to know that at certain points in my buying decision process. And I would love to see a website that takes the economy of a game and tells you how long to unlock X thing, or how long to get all of these things. And really, you can work it out, you know, it'll take a player an average amount of time or whatever. Like, I would just love to see that. Like, how long does it take to earn? You could call it howlongtoearn.com. Right? Like,
that would take so much time to get real numbers on that stuff, though.
It would.
And you would have so much pushback.
The person who is probably best suited to put this website together already has a very high-paying job at a game developer, or works in accounting or economics in some other capacity. But I would absolutely love to see it, just because I find that stuff fascinating.
It would be fascinating,
and it would be great to be able to compare Battlefront 2 with Call of Duty, or like the way those systems are set up. And I think we kind of have some of that in layman's terms with the GameSpot explainer on how progression works. But I would just love to see like a hub site for all that kind of thing. Anyway, because we have places like OpenCritic who are like openly hostile towards games that have monetization of any kind. And I understand that sentiment for sure. But I think you look at the NPD numbers and you look at where the industry has gone and is going, this stuff is kind of here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. So how can you as a consumer get enough information where you can make an informed buying decision if you don't like
that? To me,
those systems.
That to me is the key thing. Well, so you just said it's how consumer friendly can it be? Because I agree with you. It's not going away. In some form, it's here for good. I don't know that it's in the Battlefront 2 form. You know, and Ethan actually mentioned last week the way that it's handled in Assassin's Creed. It does sound much more user friendly. The way they're doing Assassin's Creed, you know. So, but I mean, they're still finding it. They're still finding that place, and unfortunately, that's coupled with greed to bring in as much revenue as possible for, you know, as little content as you can manage to make, because it all costs you money to create. But yeah, I agree with you. I would like to have, because Battlefront 2, before all this happened, I was ready to buy it sight unseen. And I would have been pissed had I gotten it. I'm not really sure why I didn't buy it, but well, actually I shouldn't say that. The fact that this happened based on the early release is a godsend for me, because I didn't go out and spend any money on it.
Yeah.
Because my son is really excited about this game. He's still really excited about this game, and I wanted to buy it to play it with him. And now I'm just kind of stepping back and waiting to see where this all settles out. And then I have been burned by it again a little bit with Forza 7 this year, but they sort of backpedaled really fast on that one. But again, that's something that I bought as a fan, sight unseen. I didn't, and I don't, games that I'm super excited about, I actually don't follow the news very closely on, because once I've decided I'm going to buy it, I kind of switch off on any of that stuff. And yeah, like it feels predatory, and there needs to be a way that consumers don't feel that way, don't feel like they're being preyed upon. And that's not to say never ever charge an extra cent, because that's not going to happen. But find the acceptable and lucrative enough ways to keep your revenue stream going.
Right, that you as a player feel good about participating in, if you so choose to do so. Right?
And be really honest and open about what those systems are in your game. Because free to play is not going away.
Don't try to hide them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's all it is. Sure, have whatever system you want, but just be open about it.
Yeah, don't run from it and be like, oh, here's our beta. Oh, by the way, it's got a ton of loot boxes in it. Oh, here, reviewers, check this out. Here, the cost is 10,000 credits to unlock these heroes. Oh, wait, it's 60,000.
Exactly. Whereas you look at something like Zelda. I mean, I bitched about the Zelda DLC, but they were upfront with what they were going to do. They were upfront with the price. I didn't buy it, but I was appreciative of that. They said exactly what they're going to give you for what you're going to pay for, and cool, bring it on.
Well, yeah, in that case, I felt good about buying that because I knew exactly what I was going to get.
Right.
And I also bought the season pass for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 because they kind of detailed that they were going to do more content for a full year.
Yeah.
Let's see how far in that I actually get. But you're never
going to play it.
I am going to play it. I am going to play it. It's an RPG and it's on the Switch.
But yeah, I think you've hit on something there, CJ. It's like not necessarily get rid of these specific types of monetization because they're evil and they need to go away. You can hold that opinion, but you as a consumer are allowed to make it. Oh God, I sound like Ethan when I'm saying this. But if you as a consumer are allowed to make an informed decision, an informed purchase decision, I think that's at least a huge step in the right direction.
Well, here's another thought on that. So Pocket Gamer is a site out of the UK that used to, I don't think they do it anymore. They used to do a thing with new games where they'd pick like 1 or 2 free-to-play games a week, and they gave it to a panel of like 5 people to basically review the free-to-playness of it all and whether it felt fair. And to me, something like that would be acceptable here. So you kind of take that opinion outside of the review, unless, like I said before, it's completely predatory or it's providing a ton of value for a little cost, and have like a panel of people, and maybe you publish that story a week after the game came out, but then you would have it there, right? Anyway, it's just an idea.
I think it's kind of important to say here too. We talked about earlier where somebody threw some math together and said that like one hero would take 40 hours to unlock, and actually, Nat Jack in our chat just said that reduced credits. They're saying that they figure it's going to take about 37 hours to unlock all heroes, and those numbers are great. But I'm actually more interested in the very low level upfront experience of when I fire this thing up, do I feel right away like I'm playing something that's complete, or do I feel like I'm immediately handicapped? And you know what I'm saying? And like, do I or do I hit that paywall too soon? Which is, that's sort of old school game balancing in general. Before there were ever microtransactions or loot crates, you ran into this before in games anyway. And going back to Forza 7 as an example, ever since they changed the way they're handling VIP, I was playing a bunch of that this weekend, and I'm fine with it. Like it's, yeah, you could sit there and say, well, and I would bitch that like if there's a particular car that I want, I have to get lucky on the loot crate. True, that does suck, but I'm playing through. I'm not having to win every single race. When I move on to a new series, maybe I can't necessarily buy every single car that's available at that for that tier, but I can buy a competitive car just by finishing top 5 all the time or something like that. And like, to me, that's a good balance, right? If I want to grind, I can, but I don't have to. And like,
to me,
I'm more interested in that day-to-day early experience than I am 40 hours from now, I'll be able to unlock this thing. You know, like,
sure. It's like the drip feed of rewards, right?
Right.
And how do you feel about them? Do you feel rewarded enough to continue playing? Or do you feel like to get these rewards, you have to have the best stuff, and to have the best stuff, you have to have paid or spent 37 hours?
That's what grinding. The progression in this game sounds like to me, which is why it turns me off completely. Like I feel like if I go in and play multiplayer and I don't spend any money, I don't have a chance.
Right.
From the sounds of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like, and also, how are we going to feel about this stuff 5 years from now? Like, are we going to look back on this conversation and be like, wow, we were really naive. Like, look at what, look at the games that are out now.
Look back at Horse Armor. How many of us were saying, oh, this is totally innocuous. That's never going to be such a big deal. Like, don't worry about this. DLC is not going to be huge. And here we are.
Exactly. Yeah. It all comes around for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we move on?
Yeah, because it's been almost an hour.
Spent a lot of time talking about loot boxes. Although
the best thing about this is next week when we start the show, we're going to start the show with by introducing Ethan and saying, by the way, you're not allowed to talk about Star Wars or loot crates. He'll be like, but
I hear he bought the game. I hear he bought Battlefront 2. so we'll have to talk about that one.
Oh, God.
Because removing microtransactions is only temporary, and I think his ownership of that game is also temporary. Anyway, let's move on and talk about some other news. So the ESRB, there's some new rules in place that impact the small batch physical.
Sorry, keep going.
Physical copy of. I love it. And we're laughing, and nobody is able to see what we're laughing about. It's great. So the ESRB made some new rules, or some new rules are now being enforced, where it impacts the small batch physical game business that places like Limited Run, IM8-bit, there's several other companies that do similar things. Basically, the games that are low print run, that came out physical, that did not have an ESRB rating, that practice is essentially over, completely over.
And my understanding was that those games, the digital versions, had ESRB ratings.
Oh, that's right.
But they didn't need to post those ratings on the box. When it was a digital to physical.
That's right.
Yeah. That was the loophole.
Correct. The loophole was going digital to physical. You didn't need to print an ESRB rating, or you didn't need to apply for an ESRB rating. Yeah. A new one. The long form.
And by not applying for it, you weren't allowed, even though you had an existing ESRB rating from a digital application, you're not just allowed to slap that onto a box. You have to pay for that.
That's right. Yeah. So now you have to pay for the ESRB rating to be on the box, and that charge.
And all the reason why this is a thing is because all the platform holders are enforcing it now.
That's right. All the
platform holders are rule anywhere. It's just all the platform holders are enforcing it.
That's right. And the charge is it's around $3,000 if your game costs less than $1 million to make.
Yes.
And I believe this is on the Giant Bomb wiki entry for the ESRB. If your game costs less than $250,000 to make, the charge is only $800. So it's sort of a sliding scale based on the budget of the game.
Right. Although that is a massive, like between 250,000 and a million, the scale doesn't move. It's like, oh my God.
Well, I don't know if it moves or not. It's on the Giant Bomb wiki. It does not say anything but those numbers, right?
Well, it just seems like between that and other articles that I've been reading, it's like a $3,000 charge if it's under a million, and then the next tier seems to be under 250,000. So three-quarters of a million is your range there.
Yes,
which seems like a big range.
Yeah, and of course, if your game cost over $1 million to make, you have to pay more,
a lot
than that.
Yeah.
The normal ESRB fee for games like Battlefront 2 it's more than $3,000.
Yeah. So, and the reason this is a big deal is because there's an article that came out, and oh my God, did I get rid of the link?
Engadget, why your favorite indie game may not get a boxed edition.
Yeah, I think I turned or I closed the tab. Damn.
It's in the outline. It's in the outline.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to find the outline now. I'll get there.
Okay.
There it is. Okay. Yeah. So the reason that this is a big deal is because you've got places like Limited Run is probably the most well-known one, but a couple other ones too have come out and just said like $3,000 that's a huge percentage of our budget, which, it would be, because assuming that they're paying that, like Limited Run and these other places don't do the development, but they would probably still be footing the bill, or at least part of the bill, for this new rating. So I think it will actually have a negative effect on what games we see physical releases for, which kind of sucks.
I think you could pretty easily say that extremely small indie games that didn't sell a whole lot on digital probably won't be moving to physical. If this is part of their the amount of money they have to recoup to make the economics work out, they may not do it now.
By the way, the standard submission price is $10,000. So if your game cost over $1 million, the budget was over $1 million, your submission price is more than $10,000 for the ESRB.
Right. Yeah.
Just FYI. So yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks for sort of these companies that live entirely in the area of like I am 8-bit and that sort of thing.
Sure.
Digital releases and creating physical copies. Although it is kind of funny because that this happened, because I just had bought Night Trap and actually The Bunker from Limited Run, and I think those are the first two games I'd ever bought from Limited Run, and it actually caught my eye both times on the covers that there's no ESRB rating on it.
Right.
It's like, wow, that's strange, and I never understood why, so I kind of see it now. I think this is a good thing. From a standpoint of consumer awareness, especially speaking as a parent, I read this somewhere this week and I totally agree. One of the main reasons you'd want this is because the fact that you're releasing these physical games, yes, they're collector's editions, so this might not be something that happens a lot, but this could end up in a used game bin at EB or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of having the ESRB if you don't have the logo and the explanation on the box. I mean, you can go look it up, sure, but you got to think of the consumer that isn't that savvy, not looking it up. So I think it's good to have them.
I think there's that, and also not just that, but shows like PAX and gaming conventions around the country. Obviously, places like Limited Run and I Am 8-bit go to those and sell those games there, and I don't see this as a bad thing, especially since it was a loophole to begin with.
But what I will say is, I think that in cases like you see with I Am 8-bit and Limited Run, that maybe there should be another tier in there somewhere where it's not just sort of the absolute, okay, your game costs more than $250,000 to make.
You mean like Print Run?
Yeah, like because they're still using the rules that anybody who does a physical release of any game has to play by.
And no matter how many units,
right? And no matter if you already got the thing, it doesn't even matter if you already got the thing rated for digital only release. Like I feel like there should be a clause in there. It's like if you've got a rating for a digital only release and you're moving to a limited print run,
and you're only going to do 10,000 copies or
exactly, yeah. If the run is actually limited, then we scale sort of that 800 to 3,000 range. Like we scale that a little bit. That would make more sense to me because really, the games have already been rated. What you're really asking them to do is pay for the right to put your logo on the box.
That's right.
So I don't know.
I could see that. I could see, a scale based on how many copies you're actually going to print.
Yeah.
Of a small batch game. Yeah. That makes sense.
I know.
All right.
That's really all I had to say about that.
That's all I had to say about that too. Did you watch the Rampage movie trailer?
Oh my God.
Because they're finally making a movie based on the Midway arcade game Rampage. This has been a rumor for a long time. This has been like a thing for a long time.
Development hell forever, hasn't it?
Yeah. And it's finally happening with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Set in Chicago, which I wonder if that's a nod towards Midway being
30 years in the making. That game came out in 1986.
It's awesome.
One of my favorite games, by the way. God, I loved Rampage.
Oh yeah, it's great, and I can only hope that somebody has a video game version of the movie that's going to be basically just a retread of the arcade game coming out.
They should totally do what they did with like the Street Fighter movie game, where they literally just recreate the original game, but they use digitized sprites.
Oh yeah, that'd be amazing.
From the movie,
that'd be amazing. I'm sure they have something in development, right? I'm sure they do.
I don't know, because movie-based games are not really a thing anymore.
They are on mobile.
That's true. Yeah, and that would be perfect for mobile. Hang on, I have to write a proposal. Hang on.
Yeah, or they could do like a small digital game. Just make it in Unity. It's fine.
Yeah,
right? It'll take like 2 days. That's how game development works, right?
That trailer, I think George is the ape, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think they did a great job with his coloring. At least he looks just like the you would expect the ape from the game to look.
But how do you feel about the fact that in the game it's mutated humans and not?
I don't really care.
They go back to their human size.
I don't really care.
Oh, okay. It's not a big crocodile like in the.
Yeah, I know. He said crocodile kind of threw me off, although I was happy because I was sitting there watching it with a couple of nerd friends, and I was like, "Where's Lizzie? I don't see Lizzie." And
there you go.
That was Lizzie. So
I wonder how many fun video game in jokes they're gonna make.
All I care about, I want to go see it, and all I care about is that at some point one of them busts open a wall and grabs someone who's having a bath.
Yes,
and eats them. That's all that matters.
Yes,
if that's in there, that is $15 well spent.
That would be absolutely amazing. In other movie news, apparently Nintendo's talking with Universal Pictures about doing a CG animated Super Mario movie.
They already did Mario plus Rabbids, so we're gonna get like Mario plus Minions.
It's Illumination Entertainment who's supposedly doing it. So yeah, probably.
I hope so.
So that should be good.
Sure, why not?
Not the Bob Hoskins version. It'll probably be better. Better movie.
Yeah. I noticed, by the way, The Punisher just came out on Netflix, but I also noticed that
I've heard it's not good.
Oh, really? That's too bad. I also noticed, at least on the Canadian Netflix, that they have the old movie on there as well.
The old movie from the late 90s, or
I think so. Yeah,
90s.
Yeah. Which I'm actually more excited to watch. I've never seen it, but I heard it's so bad it's good. So
okay. Well, I think now we should talk about what we've been playing. So we've talked about.
Since we've got about 15 minutes left.
Yeah, so we've talked about news forever. I'll start.
Sure.
Okay, I bought Rocket League on the Switch, and it is darn good.
Is it the perfect game for the Switch, CJ?
It's more than perfect. It feels like I have two games for one price. It's absolutely amazing. I'm terrible at Rocket League, by the way. I'm not good at all. But I do have fun playing, and I was I've flew to Los Angeles for work this week and played Rocket League on the plane against bots, and it was fantastic. In fact, I don't know if you're this way, but like when playing games, I don't do the whole like full body movements thing.
Oh, really?
Very often. Very few games I do that with, but Rocket League, I have learned that I do that. I do make the full body movements, and the guy next to me in on the plane was sleeping, and I almost elbowed him right in the right in the stomach at one point because I like did the jerk movement as if that does anything. It doesn't. It's not a motion control game, but yeah.
But you got to cover all the bases. What if it was and you just didn't realize it?
Exactly. Yeah. But it's great. I hear that there are loot crates in the game. I've not seen them yet. I don't know where those would be, but there is an option in the settings to hide crates. So if you don't want to think about loot crates, you can hide them, which is interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
I believe that would all be cosmetic in that game.
Yeah, it's all cosmetic. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it does a fair amount of rewarding you with cosmetic stuff after each game.
Yeah, that's I mean, I haven't played
tons of unlockables.
Probably over a year, but when I was playing it, that was the way it was set up. It was just like, you always sort of get something.
Yes. Yes, you do. And they also offer they have car packs and various other things like the Back to the Future DeLorean, which I'm very tempted to buy.
Nice.
But I haven't yet. Anyway, yeah, I've mostly been playing offline against bots. I played some online games the day it came out, and it's a cross-platform game, by the way. You can play. It uses a system that pits you against Steam and Xbox One players,
right?
Not PlayStation 4.
No,
for whatever reason,
Sony won't allow it.
I had thought that Rocket League was cross-platform on PS4, but apparently not.
Nope.
So, anyway, I got killed one game, and each of the avatars that are on PC, they have the image says PSY, like Psyonix. It's because they're playing on another platform. And man, we just got killed. It was like 10 to 3 or something. It was or maybe 10 to 2. It was bad. It was a romp.
Funny.
Yeah, so that was fun. I played some more Mario Odyssey. I've got 500 moons now.
Good Lord, man.
Yeah. So that's a lot of moon.
I jumped back into Mario Odyssey a little bit more this week. I haven't touched it in a while. I think it's just sort of taken a little bit of time off from it.
Yeah.
I also wanted to finish Resident Evil 7, so that's where I was spending all my time.
Mm-hmm.
And then just jump back in again recently. I think I will keep sort of pecking away at it. I don't know how much farther I'll get, but I still haven't gone back and visited any of the other worlds.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I know that I'm missing out on a lot of things, but I'm just kind of in that, one special world that I've seen so far, and there's still just so much to do in there.
You should definitely do that, and they still have unlockables that happen, at various.
I've heard that
they unlock new outfits in the stores, and there's some new challenges facing you up to when you unlock 500 moons. So
nice.
Yeah. So I'm still enjoying that, of course. I played Doom a little bit more, and I after the show last week, and I think I said the game gives me motion sickness. I went back because I bought the Switch version in part because I had watched previews of it online that showed the settings screen and had a field of view option that you could increase and decrease. And I don't know if that's in the PS4 version or not. I think it probably is.
Don't know. But
the Switch version had it in those preview videos, so I was like, okay, because field of view is one of those things that makes me nauseous. If the sides, it does that fisheye lens kind of thing that just really makes me sick. So I thought, if you can adjust that, then maybe
I should
play it. But they took it out. It does not exist in the production version, and I tweeted to Panic Button. This was in the previews. Where did this go? And they said it caused performance issues, and they had to remove it.
Oh, that sucks.
Which definitely sucks. I'll have to take some Dramamine and wear my C bands. I don't know if do you know what C
show
bands
those
are?
again, because you mentioned those last week, and I think it's been a while since you've explained them, so I feel like you should, because it sounds like magic, but apparently it works.
Yeah, so I didn't even know what these were until I was going on a cruise last year. There's seasickness bands, and they're for your wrists, and you put them on, and it's got like a little pressure point thing, a little pressure point dot. And the idea is that there's an area on your wrist that if you have pressure applied there on both sides, it'll help your seasickness. And it's also for pregnant women.
For pregnant women and CJ.
Yeah, it's drug-free nausea, travel, morning sickness, and chemotherapy-induced nausea relief. Just with a simple armband.
And you find that it works?
I haven't done extensive testing with Doom, but
sort of in general.
In general, it's certainly eased it. Ask me after I play some Doom with that. But anyway, they're like $10 for a pack of 2 on Amazon, and I don't know if they work. Maybe it's all psychosomatic. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder if that's the case. Like my dad, for a while there, swore by you could get those like those metal necklaces that were that are magnetized.
And
it's supposed to be sort of this general cure-all for everything, and he swore by it for a while. I'm like, you feel better because you think you're supposed to be feeling better.
It probably.
That's all.
But it could be. Well, we'll see.
There could be science behind those C-band things. But
I don't know if there's any science behind it, but I'll take it. We'll try it. When I was going on a cruise, I was like, I have to get like anything that's going to ease the nausea that I will most likely have. And then I was like feeling like I was on a boat for the next like week and a half afterwards. And that was fun. But
there you go. CJ needs weed. There
you go. Yeah. I'll try that next time. But like when a new Halo would come out years ago, I used to slam some Dramamine.
I remember.
If I knew that I was going to be playing it for a while, and it helped things. Games like Halo and Overwatch, and those don't give me nausea like Doom and Wolfenstein and Perfect Dark Zero and Killzone, and there are a couple others that do it. Yeah, Doom I can't play more than like 10 minutes without feeling like I'm going to vomit. So anyway.
Right on the back of the box.
Yeah, exactly.
Johnston, Player One Podcast. I can't play for more than 10 minutes. I feel like I'm going to vomit.
There you go. I picked up Assassin's Creed Origins. I don't know why.
Okay,
but I did.
Good talk.
Because I was kind of in the mood for some Assassin's Creed, right? And why not? Why not pick up this one? And played it a little, and I like the combat, and it feels like an Assassin's Creed game, and it really doesn't feel all that much different, except now to mark enemies, you have to use the bird instead of just seeing them through your telescope or assassin vision or whatever you did in the previous ones.
Right.
So I guess that's cool.
Assassin's Creed reskin is good.
Yeah. Basically, yes. It feels like Assassin's Creed, and it's making me run all over the map for side quests and stuff, and some of them are good and some of them are, not great, but par for the course, I guess. I loved Black Flag. That was a great Assassin's Creed.
But you always wanted to be a pirate, so.
I have always wanted to be a pirate. It's true. Of course, I bought it, and then now all the Black Friday sales are happening, which the digital stores are getting Black Friday sales as well.
Yeah.
So, like, Assassin's Creed Origins is down to like $41.99, and I paid full price for it. Like a sucker. This is why we don't buy big budget games on day one. Anyway.
Is weed legal in Atlanta?
No.
There you go.
Not yet. No, I'm pretty sure not. I haven't paid attention, honestly. I don't smoke weed. Never have. There you go.
Me neither.
Greg, what have you been playing?
Like I mentioned earlier, I pushed through and finished Resident Evil 7 this week. Man, that's a good game. It's a shame. I feel like it'll be a shame come into the year because it came out so early in 2017 that I don't think it's really going to be remembered. when it comes time to talk about top games of the year. I hope that's not the case because, yeah, it's just really good. It's so cool for them to get away from the whole sort of blockbuster military style shooter that Resident Evil seemed to have become with like 5 and Giraffe Blowjob, and the it's just cool to have sort of this first person single player, um, creepy as hell horror game to play instead. It was just really well done. I was ready to when I finished it. I was ready to hit the button to buy the DLC. They have 2 DLC packs. But then I did a little bit. Actually, I went on How Long to Beat to see how much sort of content I was going to be getting, because like one of them was $20 and one of them was like $15, and I think one of them was 20 minutes long, and one of them was an hour.
Okay.
So that made my decision easy.
Well, there's also there's some more DLC coming out in December, right?
Like, yeah, but if they keep going that rate, I'll probably just watch YouTube videos.
Oh, okay.
Because all I'd want it for is the story anyway. And I hear out of those 2, only one of them really has any major story points that you'd want to know about. So, but excellent game, and it should be cheap now. Actually, with Black Friday coming up too, it should be extra cheap. So if you haven't played it, you really should. It feels like such a great throwback to old Resident Evil, but without all the cheese. And which I was never a huge fan of anyway. I mean, I am sort of in retrospect, but at the time I wasn't. But yeah, really, really, really enjoyed it. And as Ethan would be saying if he was here, and he would be right, playing it in VR is just like amazing. Yeah, so playable in VR. Other than that, I really only played more F1 2017, and it's every time I play it, it climbs the list for my game of the year.
Really?
It's on my short list.
Okay.
It's so good. The technology tree. It sounds so stupid, but it's so impressive, and it's so much fun just to play around with it. And yeah, I could go on and on about it, and I won't because I have before. So, but man, F1 2017, so loving that. Not playing a whole lot of Forza 7, not playing a whole lot of Gran Turismo, I gotta say.
Okay.
Playing, which apparently I don't know if you saw, they didn't sell very well.
Yeah, the NPD, Gran Turismo Sport, not doing so hot for the debut month, and wasn't Forza ahead of it?
Yeah, it was.
Which that generally doesn't happen, and obviously PlayStation is a larger install base.
I wonder. I was saying this to a friend last night. I wonder if Polyphony Digital has finally burned through the goodwill that they had with Gran Turismo in taking so long.
Yep.
To really, where you've got Turn 10 churning out a new Forza every 2 years, and like clockwork. Whereas with Gran Turismo, I mean, GT Sport is a year late. Like, not only did it take forever to come out, but then when they announced that it was coming out, then they delayed it, and they delayed it for a full year.
Right.
And then what we got was something with 0 single player, and you can only play online, which I think is really well done, but it definitely wasn't what people were waiting for.
Right.
So it's a shame, and I'm curious to see if there'll still be a GT, obviously, but I really wonder if he's sort of frittered away all that goodwill he had.
They should go back and make Omega Boost 2. It's time.
Motor Tune GP3. What are you talking about?
Not Motor Tune. No.
I think that's all I put on my list here. Let me go.
That is all.
Yeah, that's really all I've been playing this week.
Okay.
Oh, I want to say, by the way, that Night Trap that Phil gave me to auction off for Extra Life sold this week, and it made $70.
Awesome.
So that's pretty cool. Thank you. Gonna send that out tomorrow.
Good deal. All right. Should we do some tweets?
Let's do it. I'm not singing.
Me neither. All right, let's do this one from Hacker Alias Super Cambot, who says, That's right. With the Switch making console games portable, are there still any games or genres that you must still play on the big screen?
I want to point out that the Turbo Express and the Nomad made console games portable 20 years
That's true. That's very true. Somebody tweeted to me that they got to the final area of Mario Odyssey portable, and they saved and then waited to finish it until they were at a TV.
I
And I thought that
largely
was
played Mario
interesting.
Odyssey on a TV.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I did the same thing with Zelda, where I played a lot of it handheld, and then I did finish when I finished the game. I played on television because I wanted to see that final battle and the ending, on a television screen. So in that case, that's what I did. I chose moments to play on the big screen. I think actually I beat Mario Odyssey on a TV also. Come to think of it,
I know I did.
and I did play a lot of that portably.
Me being me, racing games. Yeah, Mario Kart's on there. But I'll be interested to see something that more requires like analog, something that I would like to see with like analog gas and brake, and how that's going to feel on a Switch.
Yeah, like if they bring any like previous gen racing games over that had analog control on the buttons. Yeah, because Switch, even the Pro controller does not have analog shoulders.
No.
Which
it
I'm kind
hasn't
of
been a problem so far. Yeah, me too. But I guess I am and I'm not, because they wanted the Pro controller. I think it was really dictated by what's offered, obviously, on the Joy-Cons.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I mean, even on the PlayStation 2, you remember the face buttons on that were analog.
I do remember that. That was weird.
That hasn't been a thing for a while, but
it hasn't been a thing since.
Yeah, but
every time.
If it was because the range of motion on the triggers isn't great,
no,
it's not really a reason, since the PlayStation 2 face buttons had it.
Right.
Yeah, and I think also RPGs where the text is small. So Project Octopath Traveler had a bad font, I think. Yeah. But I think people who design games on the Switch have to think about text size and size of UI elements, because Doom, for instance, you play Doom on handheld, and Rocket League does this too, where those UI elements are small, and occasionally you have to get right up in there to read what it is you're clicking on. So,
or call your daughter in to read it for you, since your eyes are so old you can't.
I'm an old man. True. Yeah. All right. Let's do this one from hacker alias Andrews CCLL, who says, I've had an iPhone for a while now, but no attachment on games to it, unlike consoles. Same for you guys? Why?
Yeah, definitely same for me. I check out iPhone games, but I don't. I think the last one I spent any real time with was Motorsport Manager.
That's a great game. And I think a sequel just came out, actually.
It did. I haven't tried it yet. I'm actually ramping up to play the Steam version that came out this year.
Ah, okay.
Can't wait. They just added a whole bunch of new stuff to it, too. That's like the next game I'm playing.
Yeah. I think, so obviously when the App Store first came out, I think people were very enamored with playing games on phones. And I think as console gamers, if you're mainly a console or PC gamer, you thought about it as sort of a novelty, right? A lot of those things were like, this is not, it's never going to be my main platform. And I think a lot of people feel that way about portables in general, like DS and Game Boy Advance. I know there's some of us who are like, I'll play games on whatever system it comes out on. But I do feel like there were people, or are people, who see phone games as beneath them, or at least not their preferred method of play. And as mobile gaming has gone on, I mean, the App Store has been around for almost 10 years at this point. The types of games that are popular on that platform are not the type of game that someone who's totally into Mario Odyssey or Zelda or Final Fantasy, well, I guess they make some Final Fantasy games on mobile, but generally you're a console gamer or a handheld gamer or an iPhone gamer, and one of those pieces can drop out, right? And I play a lot of games on mobile. I mean, I also work on mobile development.
Yeah.
So I I think mobile games are awesome, and I don't even know how many games I have on my phone. It's a lot, though. I have like 4 or 5 screens of just games, actually. So, and not in folders, just loose. Anyway,
CJ plays it loose.
I play it loose. Let's do this one from Hacker Alias Last Place 09, who says, would love to hear your take on the news that Gazillion is shutting down Marvel Heroes Omega after barely 6 months on consoles.
Talking earlier about not making it feel like you're screwing over your dedicated players. Mm-hmm. Wow. Because people spent some real money on that game.
Yes. And it's dead after 6 months. But I think there are, obviously I think this is more Disney than the fact that the game, whether it was a success or failure is sort of not in this equation, right? I would think, because 6 months, that's not a lot of time.
Yeah, unless they were being held to some ridiculous standards, but yeah.
Yeah. But there are games that I wish I could remember the names of. I think Rebel Galaxy, and what was the other one?
Right.
Star. They came out on PS Plus and they were free, and both of those games shut down within like 6 months. And obviously nobody really paid attention to those because they're not named Marvel Heroes, but it's difficult to run a game that is an online game if it doesn't have a mass player base, right?
Right.
I'm not sure if that's at play here. It may not have been. I don't know if this game was cross-platform, but online games are hard. That's the lesson here.
True.
Yeah. Let's do this one from Hacker Alias Rich Grisham, who says, when are each of you, if you already haven't, getting a 4K television? I haven't taken the plunge yet, but I am starting to feel the itch and couple it with a PS4 Pro or Xbox One X.
It's easy to feel that itch right now because you're starting to see the prices. Everyone's getting ready for Black Friday. Yeah. And you're starting to see prices that are very inviting, but I'm not. Yeah. I'm at least another year away, if not longer.
Yeah, for me, I really don't care about resolution. And part of it is because I have terrible eyes. I'm not going to notice the benefit enough, right? Like there's that bugs demo on Xbox One X. I don't know if you've seen the YouTube video about this. So Microsoft put out, it's basically a freebie app that you can toggle on and off the various effects that the Xbox One X allows for, including things like HDR and whatever the other graphic tricks are. You can turn on 4K textures and turn them off and things like that, and look at the difference. And I looked at that demo, and I only watched it on YouTube, so it was not in 4K, which means it, of course, was not as impressive. But I really don't think I am in that camp where I need that sort of visual fidelity yet.
I mean, if I could afford it, money was no object, I would have one for sure. I'd love it. But
sure.
Yeah, I just the thing is like what Rich was saying too is that I would feel like to take advantage of it, I'd need to jump into a One X and probably a PS4 Pro, and that's expensive, So, and the TV
it's pricey
on its own. So no, I can wait.
Well, and of course there are competing standards and all that, and you want to make sure you get a TV that can take advantage of everything. And
right,
it's just, it's in a bad state. I would be interested in a PS4 Pro or an Xbox One X if the interface of using the platform is faster. That's like my entire complaint with both platforms, is that as time has gone on, both have gotten laggy, and I see this spinning.
It's always the thing with you.
Triangle, square, circle, X icons. If it goes on too long, I get really frustrated. So that's really the only way I would upgrade, is if I saw video proof of my account being used and my large friends list like loading up faster on another platform. I totally
my large friends list.
Well, that's right. I got like 500 friends on PS4.
Ew.
Need that friends list to load up quick. Anyway, let's do this one. Let's wrap up with this one. Unless you want to keep going, Greg.
Sure. No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, let's do two more. Two more. Hacker alias Alan Kwan said, "Did CJ buy Drop Mix?" No, I did not. Not yet.
Okay.
I've been tempted. I've been watching the price on Drop Mix, and I think Toys R Us or Target has a Black Friday deal.
So you're buying it
maybe,
this week, then?
Maybe. Can't say.
CJ's totally buying it.
Can't say for sure.
Totally buying it.
Maybe. All right. And let's do this one from Hacker alias Ron P, who says, with Skyrim and Xenoblade joining other epics like Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, is the lack of any save backup system starting to become a glaring problem with the Switch? The answer is yes.
Right along with storage.
Yeah. I mean, storage prices. What I saw, there was a 400 gig SD card on Amazon for like $250, and yes, that's exorbitant right now. That price is going to come down, keep coming down. It's not like with the Vita where the 64 gig card
that was just
was $120 for the entire lifespan of the system. So I'm hopeful that things will get better in that regard. But in terms of backups and cloud saving, I really do feel like they need to address that soon. I'm hopeful that when Nintendo announces the specifics of their online service, which is supposed to debut in 2018, that cloud saving will be a part of it. But then I think you also have games on the Switch like NBA 2K that have like 6 gig of save data, where that becomes difficult. A little bit. I think things like Zelda and Mario and those I think will be a lot easier to sync to the cloud. But we'll just have to see.
Agreed.
They do need it though.
Yep.
More than anything. I mean, I think a lot of people miss the music in the eShop. There was a thread on Resetera recently, like about the improvements that could be made to the Switch, and almost all of it was like they should add music to the interface, and I'm just like, oh god. I mean,
Nintendo's had some great eShop music over the years.
It was fine, but it's not like I need that for the full experience or anything like that. I mean, it's
for yourself.
Just a shop.
Guess what I have sitting here? Speaking
of
Nintendo consoles, ready for our review in a couple weeks.
I
have my GameCube sitting here.
Hey, I have mine here too.
With my copy of Animal Crossing.
Nice.
Complete with
the memory card
with my town on it. So that's one of the things CJ and I are going to be doing. What date is that we're going to be doing that? It's not this coming Wednesday. It is the 29th. Wednesday, November 29th. We're going to be on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/B1 podcast. For our next episode of review, we're going to stick with the GameCube, and we're going to load up our original Animal Crossing
towns
from 15 years ago now.
Yes.
Let's see what they look like.
It's going to be amazing.
It will be amazing. I can't wait.
We're looking inside Al Capone's vault with this.
Yep. I'm sure it'll be just exciting too.
It'll be just as exciting.
Copyright 2002.
We can talk about which NES games we have in our house, because I don't know about you, but I tried to get all of those.
A
lot of them anyway.
I wanted to. I don't know how successful I was, because I have not touched this since. Well, I think I played it almost daily for a year, and then I stopped.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a fully illustrated manual. It's quite a thick one too.
Remember when video games had manuals?
Mm-hmm. I miss it.
Yeah. That's gonna be a fun thing.
Yeah. So tune in. Usually we get started 9 Eastern.
Yep. Yeah, we do.
Play around with Animal Crossing. What a great game.
Indeed. Alrighty, and that is our show for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you have a question for us, or would like to comment on something you heard, you can direct that to @P1Podcast on the Twitters, or you can go to our internet website at player1podcast.com. There you'll find our contact information. You'll find blog entries about Sega CD stuff from Mr. Greg Seward.
Working on a new one this week.
Find Generation 16 episodes.
Episode 112 is going live for $3 plus patrons this week, and it'll be on general release next week.
Very nice. You'll find show notes. You can link right to those by going to player1podcast.com/576. Usually include links to all the things we talked about on the show, or at least news articles pertinent to the things that we talked about on the show. And, why wouldn't you want to check that out? You got links to our Teespring shirt as well, and mug, and all kinds of fun stuff like that. On our Twitter account, twitter.com/P1Podcast. You can, in our bio there, you can get the link to our Discord channel and talk video games and podcasts and all that good stuff with us. And we also have a message board on our website if you prefer to interact that way. We're backwards compatible in that way. And you can find that message board on our website at player1podcast.com. And once you're there, you can discuss this episode with us and our other listeners.
If you would like to subscribe to the Player One Podcast, you can do so by going to player1podcast.com or to Apple Podcasts.
Boom!
I got it right the first time. Also, if you want to support the show and you want to have us at the touch of an icon on your iPhone, you could go to the iTunes Music Store and download
the App Store.
Or the App Store and download the Player One Podcast app for $1.99.
Cheap.
It gives you one-touch access to all of our episodes ready to stream, as well as reaching us through email and Twitter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
What have yous.
What have yous, sorry. You can also get that same app for your Android device on the Amazon Android App Store. I am on a roll, CJ.
For that same
low price.
$1.99.
Also cheap. Thank you, CJ. You can check us out on Twitter at P1 Podcast. You can check us out on Facebook. You can watch us every week live on YouTube, youtube.com/P1 Podcast at 9 p.m. Eastern, Sunday nights. We record
8 p.m. Eastern.
That's what I said, 8 p.m. Eastern. We record and broadcast live. And if you would like to support our show, our otherwise free show, you can do so by heading to patreon.com/P1 Podcast. Throw a few shekels our way, as Phil would say. Mm-hmm. Keeps CJ drowning in C-bands.
That's right. C-bands, baby. I need him.
For CJ and pregnant women.
That's right. That's really the same.
CJ.
Yeah, huh?
Thanks for hosting this week, man.
No problem. No problem. I also want to give a shout out to Christian Spicer, co-host of the DLC podcast on 5x5. I was in LA, and one of the listeners of our show and DLC suggested that we meet up. And actually, I've been listening to DLC for a long time, and Christian grew up friends with Chris Baker, or his brother.
Of course,
Chris Baker, and he does a show with Wombat from the CAGcast, and we have all these mutual friends. So we decided to meet up and have dinner, and that was awesome. And if you guys don't listen to DLC, you should, because that's a great show as well. So thanks, Christian, for meeting up with me, and keep doing that DLC show. No, they have more listeners than we do anyway. So,
tell them to send some our way.
Yeah, I gave him a pin.
There you go.
Podcast pin. The ultra rare small batch pins that we made.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I think we have a submission for Penny Arcade next year.
We might. We just might. They don't want it. They don't want us.
Man.
For at least next Scoop Fest, we'll have something
positive
for people. Yeah. Anyway.
I think that's a show.
I think that's it. Although, Greg, don't stop recording because we got to do another clap.
Don't stop recording. Yep.
That's right. Don't stop thinking about recording. Anyway. That
was a different song, but okay.
I know. Should we do this again next week?
Let's do it.
Bye-bye, everybody.